The following episode includes sensitive family subject matter and discussions surrounding DNA results. It may be emotionally difficult for some audiences. Listener and viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back to the Fronczak Files. I'm Tracy Hastings.
And I'm Paul Jack Fronczak. Today, we continue the story of a man who has carried a secret fear for most of his adult life, a fear he finally asked us to help him confront.
In part one, you met Logan Gifford, a husband, a father, an advocate, and a survivor of childhood trauma few could imagine. He told us about the treatment he endured at the hands of his mother and the question that has haunted him for nearly 2 decades. Is the man he grew up calling his brother actually his son?
Today, we finally bring you the answers. The DNA results are in. And for Logan, what we're about to reveal doesn't just resolve a question, it changes the trajectory of his entire sense of identity, family, and truth.
This is part 2 of Logan's story, a story about facing the darkest corners of your past and finding strength in truth.
Okay, so I just built a very simple tree of your family, right? Because we were just trying to figure it all out here. I know it's probably not complete. Just wanted to build to kind of understand where people were. I know I'm missing people on your dad's side. So this just kind of helped us understand the hierarchy of people, and then more people that you guys were related to. So let me switch over here. Okay, so this is your ancestry view, and this is you against your brother, and how many centimorgans the two of you share, which we've talked about this before, that the results came back at 2444 centimorgans. And of course, centimorgans are the biological relationship that you share with somebody. The higher the number, the closer the relationship. Now, this is an extremely high number. We know that. And it falls right into that category of brother. So it says both sides, because as a brother, somebody is going to share DNA from your mom's side and your dad's side. So if it was just a first cousin, on your mom's side, it would say either, maternal side or what, parent number 1. It wouldn't say both sides for the most part, unless you're from a town where everybody's related, which happens often. There is, or there was, I say was/is a small, tiny possibility that 2444 centimorgans, even though it is too low to fall into a parent-child relationship by the book, there is a small window of opportunity because of your unique case that your brother actually could be your biological son and half brother at the same time. And I know that's what you're trying to seek to see, what the truth is. So we really wanted to do a deep dive into this with that tiny, small possibility. And so the reason of that being the one possibility, that the numbers don't really reflect what they are, is if, number one, your parents, Dorian and Ted, if they were related somehow, and it doesn't have to mean that they're first cousins, it could mean they're second, third, fourth cousins, but if they were related somehow, that is actually going to boost the number of DNA that you would share with people in your family, because your parents are also related on the back end somehow. And so we wanted to look at how much DNA you, Logan, which is this straight line here, and then your brother, which is this straight line here, shared with other people that have taken the Ancestry DNA test. And so Ancestry is going to organize this based on your findings here of highest to lowest, which is nice. So we can just start at the highest. So we know that is on your mom's side of the family. And so we know that you share 518 centimorgans with him, and that your brother shares 418 centimorgans. That's perfectly normal, what we would expect for a brother relationship. And they're never going to be perfect. You might have an aunt or an uncle or a second cousin, and you and, your brother may share within about 100 centimorgans with that other person. And that's fine. Nothing is going to be exactly the same. It's all within a range. That's great. So then we move over here to your second DNA match, which is going to be on your paternal grandmother's side. And you share 510 centimorgans. Okay, that's great. But then your brother shares 739. So that is quite a large jump. That's not super near that 510 number. So we looked at that, and I believe that is one of your dad's first cousins, is this DNA match here. And so for you to share 510 centimorgans with that person, that's fine. That's perfect. And also for your brother to share 739 with your dad's first cousin is fine too. However, if your brother was actually your biological son, he would not and could not share more centimorgans than you do with your dad's first cousin. So it's a little funky to understand, but you guys can be within the same range. Like this right here is like the same kind of range. It's lower than what you share. That's fine, but could not be higher than what you share with somebody unless you guys have the same relationship with that person. And we took your DNA, you downloaded your raw DNA file, and then you uploaded it to GEDmatch. So GEDmatch is a really great tool for some pretty advanced genealogy. You can kind of break down your chromosomes in a chromosome browser. Sometimes it even goes way over our heads. But there are some simple tools in there that we can run. So when you uploaded your DNA there, you can run this little algorithm that's called Are My Parents Related? And it takes your DNA and it spits it out in just maybe 2 or 3 minutes, and it'll say how many generations back they think that your parents are related. Now, if people, again, are from the same town or the same area and their families have been there for generations, a lot of times their parents might be related. Your parents are not related, no relation whatsoever. And then I ran it again for your brother's DNA that you uploaded there, and it says that his parents also are not related at all. And so that was kind of like the icing on the cake that we could verify that, because what we first saw here was that he's sharing more DNA than you are. Here's another one right here. You share 478, which is fine, but your brother shares 929, which is really high. It's still within a range because you guys are brothers, but if he were your biological son, there would be no way he could share more than you do because he'd technically be a generation below you. So the DNA gets a little more diluted when you kind of go down the generations. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
So and if you kind of go down, you see the same kind of thing. 432, 516. That's great. That falls right into the right category. However, if he were your biological son, this we would expect to maybe be in the 300s or the 200s or even the 100s. And so the fact that he has more, it's fine he has more if you two are brothers. And it's kind of down here is another one. We've got another one here that he's got more than you do. But we would consistently be seeing less as we would go down, because he's not, like, if you're brothers, you're the same generation. But if he's your biological son, he's actually going to be a generation below you. Or yes, a generation. It would actually be a half a generation. I know that sounds weird because he's going to be getting your mom's DNA from your mom and your mom's DNA from you as well. So it's not a full generation, it's a half generation because of the unique case you have. But he would be lower than you because he wouldn't be on that equal playing ground as you, because you two would not share the same parents. So he definitely would have more diluted DNA is kind of how I look at it. It wouldn't be quite as strong. So it does, the DNA does show that you guys are full siblings. It would be, and I'm sure this is what, the courts will come back with at lab court as well. And I know that you have the motherless test, and that was kind of interesting too, that it said there was a really high possibility without your mom's DNA, just your DNA and DNA, that you could be the biological father. And I know we kind of gave you a little bit of explanation on that, and that was really good for us to kind of look up, because again, this is such a unique case. We haven't dealt with anything like this, and we're so, honored that you came to us to kind of trust us to look at this and kind of go through the weeds, and we're learning just as you're
Definitely
learning
in the
too.
weeds.
Right, really, really tall weeds. But this is, yeah, it's learning for all of us. But because you share, as much DNA as your brother does with your mom and your dad, and there can be a really high possibility of a motherless test with a full sibling coming back, that, yeah, you possibly could be, the father, just because of the amount of DNA you two share. It's tricky. All this stuff is very, very tricky. You look at it and it's kind of like, I think we had chatted before that, a lot of people say, oh, well, if he ends up being your biological son, it's so tragic, but gosh, that's so much better because you have like all these rights and it'll just fall into place perfectly. But at the same time, it's also a little bit of a relief.
Here's the deal, guys, and I know, and, thank you guys for being gracious, number 1, and being so sensitive to the situation he and I were facing, and, look, I mean, like I was saying earlier before we started, recording, I remember a couple years ago, 2018, April and May, I was sitting at a table with Jack, and I was sitting here, just trying to figure out how to get out of this situation for him. Because at the end of the day, yes, I am truly relieved personally with you coming to this conclusion. I mean, it is an insurmountable way. Like, I couldn't explain to you, like, just the thought of that process. And I really appreciate the fact you guys were not only so candid and hungry to really help us figure this out, but on top of that, you guys were open to, having conversations while I was hearing things in real time. Because for those that don't know, our court case is sealed. So no one's allowed to go into the rooms with us unless they file an appropriate media request. So, I understand that, it's not the most popular outcome, more than likely, because I'm sure, and unfortunately, I knew that this was going to happen, that a lot of people were going to get so caught up in the genetic rabbit hole of it. But I'm happy to be there with you guys and say, look, this is the truth and this is the clear cut answer. And, I think, in my opinion, honestly, going through this experience with you guys, I would welcome the opportunity for this sort of testing to be done in situations like mine, where it doesn't have to be picked at years later. This is a small reform where we can just get some genetic identity, and some solitude for those that are in those lower socioeconomic statuses. Because I hate to say it, and you guys are saying it's so much more common now than what it even could be. And there's could be a lot of undiscovered mysteries out there. And I think people are entitled to know that. Unfortunately, my parents were bad actors in this situation that wanted to hide him from the truth. And I didn't want to do that. So not only were you guys fighting one battle, which was, my possibility, but we were also fighting against her Munchausen.
The only thing we're fighting is the truth, right? That's all we want to find is the truth. We leave no stone unturned. So now, knowing what you know now, are you glad you started this?
Not only for me, but for him. It was all about him from the very beginning. I mean, you guys, I didn't really go into it the first opportunity we had the chance to speak, but this was a lot for him. Even though he's, mentally disabled and he's still receiving that check, which is why I wanted to investigate this premise, because that is a major factor. And um being able to say that now we know definitively that it's not this, and we could start getting that care and testing for fetal alcohol and fetal toxin because of the narcotics that were present. So you guys opened a door for a child today. This was not this was not a bad conversation. Like, this was to get him the most honest answer possible, because his folks weren't responsible, unfortunately. And what do you do when there's a child there and both of them aren't choosing to be responsible? There was an obligation on our end, and you guys helped me fulfill that for him. So thank you. Thank you, honestly.
Logan, thank you for being an amazing human being that wants to really care for your family, no matter how it got there. That's what makes it special, man. You know? It's not just that pretty smile and, the charisma that you carry. It's the fact that you actually care about human beings.
You're a true advocate, Logan. You absolutely are. At your core, you are an advocate.
It's not fair to him, man, like, that's what it was about, like, and for us, it you guys really took a huge thing that I mean, it was I hate to say it, living through it was cataclysmic, honestly, like, and it wasn't a proud thing for anyone to really deal with, and at the same time, well, you know, victory has 1,000 fathers, but defeat's an orphan.
I mean, we talk about wearing hats in our lives, and I think you've worn a lot of hats. And I think you playing this role of caregiver, and brother and father and everything, and speaking up, like you said, for him being his voice, as a mom of kids that have IEPs and that, we're constantly fighting and we're constantly trying to have, equity in school and in sports and everything else. I think that it's so important to speak up for the kids that don't have a voice or don't know how to even have a voice, right? Is going to see this, and I can't wait to see what he does in the future. And I mean, he's just surrounded by you and your family and such positive and environment from what he was in, like night and day. I can't imagine where he came from and where he is now already.
Well, you hit the nail right on the head there because I mean, let's face it, right? He didn't choose to be born this way, regardless of the genetic outcome, and again, that's I'm so thankful, but he didn't choose to want to come out and have to fight 3 times as hard as everybody else just to keep up. And that w w and in that situation, I believe children I mean, it's so easy to be pro-life because when they're still in the womb, they haven't done anything to disappoint us yet, and it hasn't been hard, and some days are just a little harder than others, and, it's not I didn't want him because clearly when we got him and I'm gonna do my best to be a little PG here because I don't know all the platform's restrictions, but he almost made a very permanent decision, and it should never come to that, and when he came to us, I saw the scars where they were. He was going long ways, not across. He looked up how to do it, and he didn't wanna be around anymore, and I was like he was the happiest kid no matter what the situation was, and I can't imagine a life so miserable where the happiest boy in my life didn't wanna be here anymore. We already put 1 kid in a body bag, Liam, July 1st of 2012, the drowning accident, and for him to feel so hopeless, I said, "What a shame." So, yeah, I kicked in the door, and I had the reason why I went this route is my attorney told me this was the fastest way we could get in front of a judge. This was not my preferred route, guys, but this was the fastest way to get in front of a judge was to unfortunately hold open all of my dirty laundry and sit here and just say, accept this for this. But, we got to get an answer. And it came at a cost, and the cost is, I'm living a little bit more in the public arena right now, but I think that, God gives his best struggles to the most loyal soldiers, and I've come to accept that, and, maybe I could put it in a language or a vernacular where other parents can feel that and say, "Yeah, I've been there too." Just the other day, I was at a doctor's office with my wife. We're going through a high risk pregnancy right now, and Godspeed to her. She's a good woman for letting me do all of this. When we were there, there was a boy that had the exact same wheelchair as Liam, and I said that that was my message of the day. That seeing another parent that maybe held their head up and had no shame, because in my mind, we're given the children that we need in our lives, not necessarily the easiest one, but what we need. And that's why I think I'm being blessed with a baby girl right now, is that I need that extra softness. and we're gonna be here and try to do things the way it should have been done the first time with this one. And, being a generational breaker, you can stand tall and get away from it. So thank you guys for giving me the opportunity to not only work with such a professional team, but, like I said, that openness and that feedback and that communication and honesty. You guys have done an incredible job. I appreciate it more than I can even say.
I appreciate that. Hey, Logan, here's the whole thing, man, right? You are either a great dad or a great brother or just a great human being all around. And that's what matters. Lucky to have you, no matter what capacity he's in. And just like your daughter, thank God for that because I have a daughter and I really wanted a daughter. But the thing is, you're a great human being and you break that cycle, right? You and I, we started with tough circumstances, but it doesn't mean that we have to live in that realm, right? We can break that cycle. We can have a great life, and we can actually enhance and make our offspring, right? Have them just free of those chains that we started with. And how amazing is that, man?
And it's incredible. Look, I mean, I look at it from that theological side and that psychology side, but I'm just also thinking about the medical independence for him. And I know Tracy and I had kind of really gone into details about that in the last bit because Paul, I was there. I asked myself that same question when I had to take him to that doctor. Is I can't really say that medical history is true or not, and that made me feel ashamed. And it's not necessarily my fault, but shame on the situation that it got that out of hand. And that we have to go and get clarity because I mean, let's face it, guys, like, and I love my brother to death, honestly, but this isn't, he's going to graduate at 18 and he's on his own and he's going to go get an apartment here. You know, he needs to be prepared a little bit more. And my wife and I signed up for that. And, I constantly tell her that faith is this verb. It doesn't just sit pretty in a Hobby Lobby frame. You have to, break that glass and you got to use that sometimes. And I'm just excited because he's going to be more empowered. I was just thinking about Tracy the other day. I took him to the UNLV clinic to go see Dr. Malin, and we had an honest conversation about rehabbing him because of his balance is off, his hand-eye coordination, and he has really bad vertigo sometimes. And now that we know it's not directly derived from our situation, we could treat that appropriately and actually get to the bottom of that. And how rewarding for him is that? Because, somebody didn't want to pick up a test and just be honest. We're really empowering that, and that's the most rewarding part for me is that him having that medical freedom.
And that he will receive appropriate treatment based off of this information.
He's definitely better equipped because you saw the value in receiving the truth, right? I can speak from my personal experience, but especially for him, when you're dealing with other medical problems and you're trying to get the background that you so desperately need, it really helps when your family is there for you and supportive of you, but is helping you get your truth. So I just want to say I appreciate you opening up to us and trusting us with this information because everybody's definitely entitled to their genetic identity and their medical history, but so much more comes along with that, and your support will carry it even further for him, and I know he'll be well equipped.
No, and I appreciate that, guys. Look, you guys helped me save this child's life. Simply put.
I was just gonna say you saved his life, Logan. Listening to what he was like when you got him, I think the timing. I mean, I am so upset, like thinking about what his life was like before he came to you. But I think the timing was right. I think this was a time in his life where he didn't want to be here, and you rescued him, and you support him, and you love him, and there's nothing more in the world that anyone could want, and you did it. And I mean, yeah, no questions asked.
Logan and I first met, right? Logan and I are brothers, and we are brothers forever from what we went through. And because of that, when you see each other grow through these amazing events that we go through. It just makes you love life stronger, right? And you want to help other people. And that's why we're on the same mission here. That's this whole team, the Fronczak Files and Logan. Which is that's what it's all about, man. It's about helping people and making life better.
You guys have simply been incredible. Like, there's not a bad thing that I could say about this experience. And I hope, like, honestly, and this is just from me to you, like, regardless of wherever this journey may go after this, but at the end of the day, you guys did something for me, which I wanted a lot of people to do, which is to listen. You guys cared and you guys listened and you guys heard my concerns. And, it was tough trying to put everything aside and ignore all the noise. But because of the Fronczak Files, I get to go about and know every day that I have this confidence now and that I've been reassured and that his life is no longer impacted by other people's poor judgment. So honestly, from the both of us, for real, thank you. I couldn't have done it without you guys. You guys have been friends along the journey. You guys didn't go anywhere. And, as someone that's going to be taking care of him for the rest of his life, I appreciate that. And it's not going to go unnoticed because, I think, and Emily may agree with me, but as someone that's in that world where you're fighting for that real estate, you take notice of people that actually care and genuinely listen. And we like to latch on because there's not too many of you guys out there in that world, in that sphere. And, I'm excited for each one of you guys to meet him at some point. He wants to definitely get to meet you guys at some point, and he's been working on how he feels about all of this. He's been writing a letter for a while, and I wanted to be sure that it was going to be given to you at an appropriate time and in his words, not mine, because, he tries to come back and come to me and like, what do you think? I'm like, nobody, you get to actually feel this stuff out now. Like, no influence from me, but you guys will get a message from him, I promise, and pictures galore.
I love it, Logan. And it's like you've said, when you're in that world, it takes one friend, one teacher, one doctor, one, sped assistant. It takes one person that hears you and cares about you and to make all the difference. And we need more of those one people, those one persons. We need more of them out there.
You guys have done such an incredible thing, honestly. Like, rest your heads high on that. You guys solved a long-time family mystery, and I couldn't have done it without you. Thank you,
We'll see you
guys.
soon, brother.
We'll talk soon. Thanks,
Bye,
Logan.
Logan.
Bye.
Bye.
Logan came to us with a fear he never wanted and a question he was terrified to ask. Today, he got his answer. And whatever that answer meant for him, it meant freedom. Freedom from secrets, freedom from shame, freedom from the control his past still held over him.
His story is a reminder that DNA isn't just science. It's clarity. It's healing. It's the power to break generational trauma and rebuild a life on truth, not fear.
You are not alone. If you've been affected by trauma or difficult experiences, support is available 24/7. Call 1-800-656-HOPE or chat anonymously at rainn.org, RAINN.org.
Next week, we're shifting from personal identity to a mystery that's haunted a small town for decades. The disappearance of Jack LaChow, a young man whose final night remained shrouded in confusion, conflicting accounts, and chilling possibilities.
In a case filled with rumor, fear, silence, and a trail that should never have gone cold. We've gathered the records, the interviews, and the reports. And in the next episode, we're breaking it all open. Join us next week as the Fronczak Files shines a light on one of the most unsettling mysteries we've investigated so far.